Well, hello there and welcome to the candy wallpapered upstairs hallway of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Hugh Stelfers for February 22nd, the day of Universality. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of Universality. Well, we have us, I don't know, maybe a little bit enigmatic. It appears to be a sphere. That's right, a simple sphere, or perhaps it can be complicated too. Who's to say? Does that speak to the day of universality? I don't know, but it's a pretty interesting image altogether. That having been said, not necessarily altogether all too important. I just like folks to kind of know what paradigm's going on here off camera. But what is important here is it's February 22nd, and so it's somebody's birthday. And so if your birthday is February 22nd, I just want to say happy birthday. That's what's important. That having been said, maybe you find this video late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may happen to be. And if that is the case, I just want to say I hope you had a happy birthday. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly, or more ideally to celebrate, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the book direct, I just want to get into a little bit of something I do around these here parts. That's right. I like to roll some dice. It doesn't make much sense, but hey, I like to live up to the namesake here, the DykASSt birthday broadcast, but I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And oh, here I rolled some doubles. That's right, a 5 and a 5 for a 10. So straight to jail. That's right. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, as I've heard it told, the universe or the higher powers that be are apt to put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or realize our aspirations. But oftentimes we're very narrow of focus, or laser focus, if you like. So sometimes we got the blinders on to kind of what's going on around us. We're not necessarily lending much credence to the things that may come into our path. That having been said, this is just a little bit of an exercise to help us start recognizing the things that the universe may put in our path. That's right. So help us take those blinders off, if you like. So we can, I don't know, how do you do this? Well, we're looking for a sign that we can't help but notice. That's right. Your daily numbers. Something that's mutually agreed upon between you and the universe. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers that I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably advisable you get your own set of dice if you want to try this out. And you're going to use these to set directional values to number sets, as well as time limits with which to go in those directions. So you're kind of taking your hands off the wheel and letting the universe show you where to go. That said, if you decide you want to do this, pick a place that's maybe near and dear to your heart, or maybe some place you haven't necessarily explored all too much. I often like to use the downtown or the town square as an example. So you head on out there with your dice in hand, and like I said, maybe try to take those blinders off, all right? Start taking in everything around you like a sponge, okay? Because you never know, the day might also start to take on a little bit of a theme. Let's bring up the sphere, if you like, as an example. Maybe you just start seeing spheres everywhere. I don't know, or maybe kids playing with balls. I know that doesn't sound too outside the realm of possibility, but you never know. It might just start to take on interesting things. I don't know, you see some guy walking along with a granite sphere in his hand. I don't know, could very well be. There you go, I just haven't had that on my desk there. But I think you get the idea. Just something that's, it might be a sticker on the side of a transformer box. You might start seeing it in advertisements on the side of bus benches, or maybe even on the side of buildings as murals. I don't know. Things of the universality coming into the mix there. That said, you get on your first directional value time limit. Maybe you aren't seeing much of anything. Well, that's all right. Don't fret. Just kind of take a step back. Take in what you see around you. Maybe you just happen to notice something small. That's right. Like maybe you happen to be on Old 55th Avenue or 10th Avenue. I would say take that as a sign you're on the right track, all right? And maybe you start off with the next directional value time limit, come to a street corner there, and maybe the number 10 bus pulls up. That's right. Hey, you know what? Maybe you just so happen to have perfect change in your pocket to ride, all right? So get on the bus. What's this? Maybe you don't want to be on there very long, so you roll your time value to find out how long to stick around. Maybe no sooner do you roll yourself, let's stick with a 10, and you look up, and what's this you see? Hey, maybe somebody's wearing a sports jersey with the number 10 on it. Oh, you know what? I might take that as a sign that, hey, That's your little white rabbit to follow if you like. And I don't know if you necessarily need to follow the individual, but maybe you get off the bus when they do. But if you decide you do want to let the universe say this is the individual to follow, give them a little bit of a buffer, let them, and then just roll yourself a time limit, find out how long to follow them for, all right? And then once that time limit's up, just let them go on your way. And you know what? That's kind of the idea here. Just letting the universe take the wheel. And maybe you just so happen to notice if, I don't know, you're in Arlington, Virginia, maybe you find yourself at Dark Star Park by Nancy Holt's Dark Star Park. And if you've ever been there, or if you happen to look it up, you'll see why that's interesting and synchronous. That's right. So look it up. Nancy Holt's Dark Star Park. That having been said, that's synchronicity in a nutshell. So get out there, let the universe show you it's with you on your path. Drum up some synchronicities or some coincidences if you like. I like to think they're interchangeable. And see, taste, touch, smell, just a little bit of that magic, and you understand why I bring it up. That's right. So let's get into the read, shall we? Your month is February, your day the 22nd. Your sign is 2 to 4 degrees Pisces of the Aquarius Pisces cusp, the last day of it, in fact. And your quality and element is mutable water. All right, February 22nd, the day of universality. Those born on February 22 tend to dissolve their ego away in the service of a meaningful cause. Their personal world may be an intricate and complex one, and their emotions profoundly sensitive. Yet they do not allow this to be their principal concern, and rather turn their spotlight out on the world, illuminating worthy ideals as well as goals. In February 22, people generally believe in the greatest good for the greatest number. And in this sense, their democratic, perhaps patriotic feelings run high. And not infrequently they find themselves supporting or leading the cause of their clan, organization, community, even country. However, the most highly evolved people born on this day have ideals that reach far beyond municipal or national borders. Lovers of universal freedom, high idealists, they wish that all enjoy the blessings of a good life, without threats of tyranny or oppression. In February 22, people have a strict sense of duty, and they can be rather stern and unforgiving. And when they make mistakes, they come down very hard on themselves. They also suffer greatly when they have gone against their own personal code, whether for reasons of expediency or survival. And they must learn to be less hard on themselves and more accepting of circumstances as they are. In February 22, standards are often too high for anyone, including themselves, it says in parentheticals, to ever live up to. And though, as mentioned, February 22 people often dissolve away their ego in service of their work, this does not mean that they are necessarily easygoing in personal relationships, despite the fact that they can appear open to a variety of experiences. Their likes and dislikes are pronounced, even fixed. And in addition, they will pull no punches when making their displeasure known to their partner. And those born this day are frequently critical of their society, adopting a revolutionary or avant-garde stance. And not particularly optimistic, they realistically assess the shortcomings of everyone and everything. And less highly evolved individuals born on this day can't help but see all the imperfections around them, but choose to do nothing most of the time, vacillating between grumbling and aimlessly striking out in rebellion. And those February 22 people who come to accept social inequalities against their idealistic nature can sink into a deep pessimism. And because of their capacity to put personal desire aside, February 22 people are capable of making magnetic leaders who instill great loyalty in their followers. And certainly not everyone born on this day will have the opportunity to exercise authority as an employer, manager, or political leader. However, should the need arise to call for assistance or support, they will be able to demand great sacrifices from colleagues, family, and friends, and since the purity of their motives is rarely in doubt. All right, this was a particularly fascinating birthday breakdown. It lends a little bit of a theme here in this period to high ideals, if you like. So, not altogether all too different from some of the days previous and some of the days following, as it turns out, as I read ahead a little bit. But that having been said, I'm certainly it's certainly pretty fascinating in my mind. It was rather narrow or laser of focus in a lot of regards, insofar as they didn't really branch out too much into what is said to be like how you might be as a partner or a coworker, or what your life may be like more day to day. But it's been kind of a through line all the way back to, say, the beginning of Capricorn, that they've been hyper focused on these days and then branching out from there. That said, I don't know that the theme of universality really came into it. I know, maybe it did for you. I didn't really pick up on it. But that said, I like to provide a little bit of a commentary as to what we read and what we went over, and maybe try to make connections with days previous and maybe even the period in general. So maybe we can see from there, or I can better pin down as we read, maybe why universality is picking up into the theme there. So let's dive into it, shall we? February 22nd, the day of universality. You have a tendency to dissolve your ego in service for a meaningful cause, and you're apt to turn your attention to issues of larger concern versus those focusing on your own sensitive emotions, they said. You also have a complex personal world to that end. So true high ideals are a chief concern here, it would seem. If in fact a general belief in the greatest good for the greatest number, or an eye for utilitarianism in a philosophical terms, is in fact what is true, as the reading claimed. Which is interesting because a lot of folks in this period are focused on high ideals. But for you, I would say maybe more than them, interestingly enough. But it's also said to extend out to you lending support in no uncertain amount of causes aimed at the benefit of society. So maybe that's where the universality comes in. It's just this general approach to the greatest good for the greatest number. Whereas some of the other folks, even though they had those high ideals, it didn't branch out that far. Who's to say? That said, the higher evolved born in this day are said to extend this pursuit as broad and as far as they can. And in no small part, this seems to be a common through line for this period, like I said, as most individuals born under certain planetary influences, which we'll touch on shortly, it does seem to apply there. So maybe there's some reasons why, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But what may set you apart, however, is this mention of a love for universal freedom. So maybe that's it there. As far as specific high ideals are concerned, albeit there's an aversion to tyranny and oppression. And that also seems fairly part and parcel for the most individuals who have an eye on this high ideal. Also an aversion to injustices and inequality. But with that in mind, the reading claims you may have a staunch sense of duty, with the words strict and stern used to relate where your harsher attitudes may be focused specifically. All right, there's a real dedication to cause. All right, it might even be palpable in so many regards. But this may in fact have a noble facet if you come down hard on not just yourself, but those around you. And it may even lend more, fuel to the fire there if you're holding yourself to the very edicts which you purport. Some folks don't do that. They like to preach from the mountaintops, but then, they don't follow through on it. They expect everyone else to do it. But I picked up on the idea that you're apt to do that. You're apt to follow through on those things and be the kind of leader who goes by example, all right, or leads by example, if you like. Which I would argue speaks to the quality of personal integrity and commitment as you live by your values versus simply advocating them. All right. That said, the reading claims such standards may be next to impossible to live up to, conversely. All right. but a worthwhile effort to strive for, I would say. As such, dedication to cause does have but it does have its drawbacks, however, as you may not be the most easygoing in personal relationships. All right. You also said you're critical of society to the point of adopting revolutionary standpoints, a lack of optimism, perhaps, and for the lesser evolved individuals that they bring up, they might see nothing but imperfections in a lot of things, and also do nothing about them. So it's pretty interesting they brought that up. But having said that, you're said to have a magnetic kind of leadership that may be baked into the bargain in some of these circumstances, and you may or you may be apt, rather, to generate no uncertain amount of loyalty, considering this commitment to your integrity and being beyond reproach in those regards. At least insofar as you're not one of the lesser evolved. So you have to maybe do a little bit of personal reflection to find out if that's the case or not. But that having been said, that's what I had to say about the breakdown. A little disjointed there as I was kind of ad-libbing it, and then it turned out, hey, you know what? I wrote about it too. So in any event, hopefully you took some value from that. Found a little bit more of a universal theme there that I thought didn't necessarily apply. Maybe I just wasn't reading it close enough when I was reading it for you. But it looks like I picked up on it in the notes there. So hopefully I kind of rallied the situation in that regard. That having been said, let's move on to your numbers and your planets. See what else we can see and draw in even more universal theme, hopefully. All right, here we go. Those born on the 22nd of the month are ruled by the number 4, as 2 plus 2 equals 4, and by the planet Uranus, or Uranus, depending upon how you like to say it, which is both erratic and explosive. And those ruled by the number 4 are highly opinionated and can be rather argumentative. Such traits may be reinforced by February 22 people by the lingering influence of Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, and given a rebellious or revolutionary cast. Not infrequently, number 4 people wish to change the social order, particularly true for those born on February 22. And since the sign Pisces is ruled by Neptune, the Uranus-Neptune connection resulting here can indicate high idealism, but also personal confusion, preoccupation with strange subjects, and even self-destructive tendencies. And since 22 is a double number, those born on the 22nd of the month may be interested in twins, coincidences, symmetry, and other doubles. Interesting. That doesn't always happen. Just check back to some of the other double days. I don't always roll doubles, so I didn't manufacture that. That having been said, let's move on back into the notes here. See what I had to say about your numbers and your planets. All right. The number 4 in the explosive and erratic planet Uranus, 4 traits of high opinion and an argumentative nature. Interesting. Such traits are apparently further endorsed with a little bit of an added Uranus energy there, baked into this last day of the Aquarius-Pisces cusp. All told, Uranus is claimed to be a day of rebellious, idiosyncratic nature, driving one to be spontaneous and impulsive in their actions, and it leads to a quality of not doing things in a straightforward kind of fashion. Now, I know I didn't say all that in the breakdown. That comes from other parts of the book. I just wanted you to be aware of a few extra traits there. Now, I don't know that I necessarily picked up on such things in the breakdown, at least taken on face value. But when compared to the other individuals born on this day, and your atypical individual, assuming such a thing exists, I would say naturally, I don't know, I can see how such things speak to you specifically, all right? Not necessarily a straightforward fashion going after universality, trying to, apply your high ideal to everything, all right? People just do it in bits and pieces, right? And especially if you're dedicated to your cause, to, just staunchly. I would say that's not normal, all right? So maybe that's where it comes from. It's kind of idiosyncratic in that regard. What else do we have here? Neptune's influence, however, the planet of dreams and visions, where you draw toward higher ideals. That's where that comes from. And this is also purported to have a baked-in magnetism in the bargain there. You're also said to attract and attract others to as much, and they mention that with the leadership aspects. And you're also said to be able to dissolve barriers from absolutes and rigid personalities. So maybe that kind of gets in there and explains a little bit of what was mentioned in the breakdown in that regard. I would say just mind the self-destructive tendencies. I would say that's also kind of baked into the bargain if you're after those erratic tendencies, and that kind of just realizes you and how you, your modus operandi, I feel like, and how you get into the weeds of things. And also the self-destructive nature type thing, it's been part of this period for, I don't know how many days, at least 5 or 6. It keeps coming up. And I would say that's probably part and parcel with this cusp dynamic there. A lot of times these cusp energies, they tend to have a conflict or a frustration baked into the bargain. So just mind those self-destructive tendencies. That might be where it's coming from. Neptune and Uranus, a little bit of a struggle there. But like I said, a little bit of a through line to this period. It just so happens for you, it seems to be much more intense. And that's probably on account of Uranus being that electrifying, erratic force, I would say. But in any event, that's been your numbers and planets. Hopefully you took some value from it. Understand maybe a little bit more contextually why you might be apt to take the line that you take, the one that doesn't necessarily go where other people go. Or who's to say, maybe it doesn't apply at all. I don't know. But hopefully you found it interesting. Before we dive into your tarot card here. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but it's here in the book. Oftentimes we can make more connections with the breakdown, so let's see what card they have for you here. The 22nd card of the major arcana is the Fool, who in several versions of the tarot is shown blithely stepping over the edge of a cliff. And some interpretations picture him as a foolish man who has given up on reason. Others, a highly spiritualized being free from material considerations. Positive meanings include renouncing resistance and following instincts freely. Foolish acts, impulsiveness, and annihilation are the negative aspects. And the highly evolved fool has followed life's path, experienced its lessons, and become one with his or her own vision. That's right. Ostensibly confusing others. That's right. Leaving them to think, oh, that person must be a fool. I don't know, I'm guessing. But in any event, let's dive in with what I had to say about it in the notes. All right. The Fool, a highly spiritualized being free from material considerations, for renouncing resistance and following your instincts freely, which I would say, just like the numbers and planets, speaks to the breakdown most aptly. All right, you're out there following your convictions to the extent, based on the breakdown again, that it's claimed even your personal relationships may be affected by as much. So positive as this is purported to be, I don't know, just mind you that maybe there's a balance in there in the mix. Again, mind that self-destruction that came up. That could be one of those negative type things, as your passions might get out of hand if you don't balance them, all right? So hence the negatives of impulsiveness and annihilation. And I would say also as romantic as becoming one with your own vision is concerned, and as nice as it sounds, I'd say in today's regards, this might be an earmark example of just how completely off the rails this might be able to go, especially if you realize it in that regard. So I don't know, it could be for better or for worse. Maybe realizing those things, you just provide an instrumental good for a greater number, like the utilitarianism was concerned. But yeah, what's the sacrifice there? All right, that is even one of the titles of the days here in this period, the day of sacrifice. And I would say that applies to you as well if you're driving after that universal good, that cause that they say you have. That said, what were the positives again? Here we go, renouncing resistance and following your instincts freely. I don't know. They say foolish acts, impulsiveness, and annihilation for the negative aspects. I don't know. What's the balance there? It's interesting that those were the positive aspects, because it didn't seem to, I don't know, speak to anything. Sometimes it's like objectively material things like luck or, I don't know, but those things were conceptual. Very interesting. Maybe that speaks to you perfectly. Who's to say? Conceptual, high ideal, faceted individuals. Like I said, maybe it speaks to you personally. It's just interesting that this was the card you drew, all right? And it's a once a month card, so it doesn't come up all too often. Any event, little off the beaten track there for me as I tried to ad-lib a little bit. Like I said, hopefully you drew some value from it. And here we are. We'll move on into your health. All right. Those born on February 22 are most often apt to ignore their health. They may one day be forced by disease to seek treatment if they don't more actively engage in preventative practices. Staying informed as to current medical, health research, and possibly homeopathic and holistic cures may prove beneficial. If not to themselves, then to their family. Taking vitamin and mineral supplements and eating low-fat diet rather, featuring plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables is a good start for them. Vigorous exercise is recommended for February 22 people, including aerobics, running, weightlifting, ocean swimming, or climbing, and possibly competitive team sports. All right, very interesting. They had some new stuff in there for you, and I kind of jumped the gun rather, not the shark, the ocean swimming. My mind's like 3 steps ahead with a lot of this stuff. All right, let's get into what I had to say in the notes. Maybe explain myself a little bit if I don't forget. It says you're apt to ignore your health, and disease may force you to seek out treatment at some point. Sounds rather common sense, but interestingly, this may be the first time that this has come up in so specific a way. What else do you have here? Stay informed of healthy practices. I would say from that. Specific food recommendations, very uncommon in this period. They said the fruits and vegetables, etc. What has been popping up here, and why I mentioned dairy, was low-fat diets with regard to dairy and animal fat. The Aquarius, Capricorn, even the Pisces period, it's kind of been this through-line commonality. Capricorn, the body areas were the veins as well as the bones for vitamins and minerals, and they also recommended cutting out animal fat, ostensibly to keep cholesterol out of the veins. And then with Aquarius, the body areas were the circulatory system, very similar to the veins, right? And they also recommended cutting out dairy, fat, and animal fat, ostensibly for your heart health, plaques, and all of the like here. For you, the lymphatic system comes up for Pisces here, but you still have a little bit of that Aquarius stuff in there. So again, animal and dairy fat, you might mind cutting back a little bit. Protect your heart and such. Lymphatic, you want to get rid of the dairy as much as possible so you can let the mucus run freely, right, and not get clogged up in the lymph nodes there. So there you go with the dairy there. That's why that popped up. Also, what do we have here? Vigorous exercise is seemingly uncommon for a Neptune influence. But with Uranus's energies, it's been shaken up this whole period. And the common denominator, and so far as I could drill down on, with regard to the type of exercise they recommend, is all dependent upon the planet rulership of the day. To take a Mars day, for instance, they would often get like vigorous exercise or combative sports as something to release their aggressive energies. Every other Mars day that came up this period, it was like moderate to light exercise. So ostensibly Uranus in there, jumbling things up, shaking things up for a change. I would say you're still under a little bit of that influence because, again, this isn't common for the vigorous exercise. And as far as the ocean swimming, I think that's the first I've seen that in the book itself. Something to do with maybe Neptune being the watery planet of dreams and such. Maybe just helping you tap into that to some extent. The high ideals, perhaps. All right, so they also were talking about the lower extremities for Uranus for for Aquarius as well as Pisces days. And Pisces has the feet and the toes as a body area. So I was recommending for folks to get themselves a pair of compression socks to mind the risk of stroke and embolism with the veins there. And hey, a little bit of support for your ankles and such. Can't hurt with that regard. So anyway, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. Let's see if I can't jump ahead of myself a few more times here. Let's get into it here. Don't be demanding of yourself and others. All right, allow for mistakes. They cannot always be avoided. And be very conscious of your responsibilities to those who entrust themselves to you. And show more interest in yourself as a person, too. Very interesting. Very interesting. All right. What did I have to say about what they had to say? Bear with me. I had to write it in the book itself, so my writing's kind of tiny. All right. Here we go. Don't be so demanding on yourself, they said. All right. You may be doing your efforts at this service, ultimately, I would say. And you're also tempting that self-destruction that's been mentioned. It's also okay to go by the speed limit if you like, all right, and also cruise. Take your foot off the gas once in a while. Learn to relax a little bit. Find that balance if you like. There's times to go hard. There's times to relax. All right, find the balance. Balance and moderation are it's like a through line theme through the entirety of the book. So it's good advice in that regard. I also say allow for mistakes, and I would say they can't be predicted oftentimes. And I'd assume they don't want you reacting harshly in circumstances where they happen. So if you don't want to be surprised by it, right? So maybe just anticipate they're apt to happen, and so when they do, maybe don't overreact or kind of come down hard on individuals, just because it's not always it's not often intended. All right, there's no malice behind it usually. So again, if you know that it's baked into the process and you're just aware of it, it won't hurt as bad, I guess is what I'm trying to say. All right, what else did they say here? Be conscious of your responsibility to those who entrust themselves to you. This is if that leadership dynamic comes in, I'm assuming. Don't be too committed to your cause, is what I said here. Your personal life can be its own thing also. And also the people that are in your direct personal life, not just leadership, all right? This came up quite a bit with Capricorn. They were dedicated to a cause, not necessarily of a high ideal, but their cause came before all else. And a lot of times they got the recommendation to drop the walls, be transparent so that their humanity could show through and they could bring people in closer. They would just sacrifice their personal life. And a lot of times they recommended that you bring those people in as early as you can, because later in life you might find yourself alone. So I would say that's kind of where this is coming from. All right. Just be mindful of those who have entrusted themselves to you. What else do we have here? Show more interest in yourself as a person. All right. The day of sacrifice comes back up in my mind here. Remember what day that was specifically? It was like day before yesterday or whatever. I'd say be an agent of your own. You don't always have to be the agent or catalyst of your own cause, all right? And you have to kind of find some time for yourself, all right? And don't be defined by just your commitment to cause. You can also be defined by your own humanity and who you are. They're two separate things. Why not bring them together? Give them both their equal attention, I would say. And I don't know. You just you want to be known for your cause, I imagine, and your high ideals and what you're doing for everybody else. But you can also be known for just who you are as a person. And I would say there's a lot of value in that in itself. And some people might be apt to just totally disavow themselves of that concern. And I'd say that's kind of tempting self-destruction in a way. All right, you've got that value as a person also. Endorse that. I like the idea that they come at that with it. You're also a person. You're not just your cause. So again, another through line for this period, people chasing after those high ideals, being committed to as much. Don't forsake who you are. That's right. So in any event, that's been your advice. So let's move on to your meditation. All right. In some obscure corners of the world, the ideal and the real have consummated a secret marriage. Interesting. One of the lengthier meditations, but let's do it one more time for you. In some obscure corners of the world, the ideal and the real have consummated a secret marriage. All right. I have some ideas about what it means, but you know what? It's your birthday, it's your meditation. I don't want to influence it for you one way or the other, or it would kind of defeat the purpose of as much. So that's been your meditation, something for you to reflect upon. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's hold up the objective mirror and see where you got the girth or the strength, if you like, and where you're otherwise a little more deflated or atrophied within the metaphor. That's right. Your strengths. You're unselfish, you're idealistic, and you're dedicated. That's right. But your weaknesses. Oh, let's hold that mirror back up and flip it to the side that blows up your face there. Maybe shows off the things you're otherwise a little more superficially insecure about within the metaphor. Your weaknesses. Here we go. You're unforgiving, pessimistic, and overcritical. Very interesting. I didn't really see those coming up. I don't tend to read ahead with the strengths and weaknesses there. I want to be surprised a little bit. Oftentimes I like to argue that our weaknesses can be strengths in and of themselves. There was a certain day that came up, I don't know, a couple months back, where impulsive was a strength, but the very next day it was a weakness. And I'm like, well, where's the disconnect there? How can it flip-flop so suddenly between the days? You'd think it would carry through as a positive, if anything. But I think it just depends on the individual, but also the situation. All right. Sometimes I think our weaknesses can also be strengths. But that being said, I also think that our strengths can help us improve on our weaknesses if there's something that we want to improve upon. So you're unselfish, idealistic, and dedicated. What's interesting is they also brought up here in the breakdown, which was an argument I've been making a lot of times in these cases, that you're going to have people help you because you're able to draw them in with your magnetic influence. There's nothing here that really speaks to that, to say like you're a great coworker. I use that sometimes, or you bring people in, but I think they might help you getting over your weaknesses. They brought that up as a strength in the breakdown, so it bears being mentioned, I would say. But unselfish, that too, you're giving of yourself to others, so they might give to you if you need the help. All right. Idealistic as a strength. You're apt to think of the high ideal, the grandiose ideas, and those might apply to helping you get over your weaknesses, thinking in ways that aren't necessarily conventional. They're more universal, if you like. That's right. And what else? You're dedicated. Hey, you know what? If you want to get over a weakness, you're going to put in the work and you're going to see it through. That said, examples for your weaknesses being strengths: unforgiving, pessimistic, overcritical. Unforgiving, I would say, hey, if there's an issue you need to get after, you're gonna do so. Again, dedicated nature, but you're gonna just lay waste to that problem, I would say, in an unforgiving manner. All right, I think I know what they're getting after. You may come after and you may lay waste to things you don't necessarily need to. But you know what? If you've got that in your bag of tricks there, and you know how to direct it, the situation to use it in, then it's a strength. All right. Pessimistic, and you know what? I would say that's a strength insofar as we can see the negatives of things. All right. We just need to know when to use that again. All right. Because some folks who are overly optimistic, they're just going to see things with that through those rose-colored lenses, not necessarily for what they are in realistic terms. So again, there's places for those things, and just don't go too far into the weeds with the pessimism, because you might not come back out again. All right, I think that's why they said it's a weakness. You go a little too deep in there. Overcritical, hey, again, you're just coming down on folks too hard. But again, if you have that tool in your bag, you're going to start to be able to get into the weeds where you need to. It's just, again, it's about moderation and knowing when to use it. So in any event, as I often like to say, don't let your weaknesses if you do want to bring your weaknesses down, just don't do so lock, stock, all right? Because I think they're also a huge part of who we are. So don't get rid of them entirely, all right? That's what I try to say. In any event, that's been your strengths and your weaknesses. So let's move on to those born on this day. When we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is not only see who shares your company, but use as an opportunity to maybe start examining what our passions are, all right? Because a lot of times I get out in the world and meet folks and ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it. And a lot of times they don't. And I think it's just because they haven't put the time and the energy into figuring out their passions. Because I think it takes time and work and energy to do as much. But if you're in a job, you're working 9 to 5 each day, you get off work, and you're rallying to get ready for the next day, and then the weekend comes along, you just get caught up on chores, and then rally for the next coming week. There's not necessarily any time to put into figuring those things out, figuring out what we like to do, right? There actually is. It's just that we don't put ourselves, or we don't dedicate ourselves toward it. So this is to help drive up the idea that you start getting after figuring out your passions. And maybe we can do that with a little bit of inspiration. Maybe the other individuals who were born on this day. See why they got in the book, ostensibly. Because if there's anything I can wish for somebody on their birthday, it's that they're chasing after a passion, all right? Or they're trying to figure out as much. Because I think chasing after a purpose or a passion helps make life a little bit more fulfilling. And for somebody who needs a cause, it sounds like, you know what? I think this applies more to you than most, I would say, though I think it applies to everybody. That said, I think you get the idea. Let's dive into those born on this day and start fueling our fires to chase after our passion. All right, we start off with George Washington, the commander of the American Revolutionary Forces and the first U.S. president, and established presidential transference of power. We also have Frédéric Chopin, a Polish composer and a master pianist. We also have Edna St. Vincent Millay, the Pulitzer Prize-winning poet and the playwright. And it says a librettist and was responsible for The Harp Weaver. Not quite sure what it was, book or otherwise, but The Harp Weaver. We also have Arthur Schopenhauer, the pessimist. All right, interesting. A German pessimist philosopher of the world as will and idea, and inspired Nietzsche, as it turns out. We also have Luis Buñuel, a Spanish master film director of The Exterminating Angel, rather. The Exterminating Angel. A little pessimistic sounding by the sounds of it. All right, there we go. So we also have Julius Erving, Dr. J, an innovative basketball forward and a 5-time All-NBA first team. Also in the NBA, and was an ABA MVP. We have Giulianetta Messina, an Italian film actress. We have the first Baron Robert Baden-Powell of Gilwell, a British general and founder of Boy Scouts. We also have Edward M. Ted Kennedy, the U.S. Senator, Massachusetts. Heinrich Engelhard, let me try to say this again. Heinrich Engelhard Steinweg. There we go. German founder of the Steinway and Sons piano makers. We also have Charles O. Finley, Maverick Royals. Responsible for the Maverick Royals and Oakland A's basketball owner, and 3 straight World Series victories. All right, there we go. He was a sports team owner. There we go. Sparky Anderson, baseball manager, and the only to win the World Series for both leagues. Maybe that's changed since then. The book was written a few years ago, so who's to say. But we also have Robert Wadlow, the tallest human at 8'11", and died at the age of 22. Again, something else that may have changed, but interesting. We also have Auguste Babel, a German 19th century founder of the Social Democrat Party. We also have John Mills, the British stage and film actor. Robert Young, a film and TV actor of Marcus Welby fame. And we have Kyle MacLachlan, TV actor. Niki Lauda, the Australian auto racer and the 3-time Formula One champion. We also have Sean O'Fleolane, Irish short story writer and a playwright. And finally, Sybil Leek, a British astrologer. And I know I butchered some names in there, so let me make up for it on my side of things. It's not done in malice, it's just hooked on phonics. Isn't the best tool used for sounding out names, as you saw me struggling with as much. That being said, I know it's a big-ass tall order to take inspiration to figure out our passions from somebody else's passions, or ostensibly just what they did. Who's to say if it was a passion? But if there's anything I can hope for you on your birthday, it's that you can use it for as much, all right? Because like I said, if there's anything we can do in this life to help us do backflips out of bed and get eager to get in and start chasing after our day, it's finding a passion, all right? And if you already have a passion, well then, the hat I'm not wearing is off to you in those regards. Jealous of as much, all right? Jealous of as much. But that having been said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. Except to say your season is winter, your sign once again is Pisces, of the Aquarius Pisces cusp period specifically, and your quality and element is mutable water. And what does that mean? Well, that's a whole host of different videos altogether. I'll leave one or two of them at the end of the video if you're interested in diving in deeper. But this has been February 22nd, the day of universality. All right. Don't know that we necessarily made a case for the sphere picture at the top of the page, but once again, go look up Nancy Holt's Dark Star Park for that synchronicity story. See why that's relevant. All right. But this has been The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description, right above a personal message I like to put together for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents. So check that out if you're interested. But this thing makes an amazing coffee table book if you're ever in the need for something to help break the ice during, say, a party, or it's just something you want to grab off the shelf and burn some time. Hey, you're apt to find something interesting in there, I would say. But that being said, the book having been related, not altogether all too important, because what is important is somebody's birthday. That's right. And wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday. But for everybody else who joined us randomly or more ideally to celebrate, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves. If you're a return viewer, hopefully you got some enjoyment out of me kind of mucking up some of the copy there. It happens on occasion. But any event, hey, if first time you've been here and you're just joining us randomly, hey, I hope to see you over for your birthday reading. But that having been said, lest I forget, that's right, your daily numbers. If you ever find yourself getting out of jail, get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your path. All right, you'll 5 and you'll 5 for a 10. All right, folks. Hey, once again, I just want to say I hope you enjoyed yourself. I also want to thank you for the pleasure of your time, and it's been a privilege to celebrate your birthday with you. All right, I enjoy doing these things for folks, even if I get mobile mouth through the process. But hey, that happens on these one-shot, one-takes. But in any event, once again, happy birthday. Get yourself some compression socks, all right? Open yourself up to focusing on yourself as a person and not just your cause, all right? You can do both, I would argue, so do both, all right? Once again, happy birthday, and take care of yourselves.